Star Wars 7x7 episode 2356. We got a bit of catching up to do, and today we're going to start by talking about the new Star Wars movie coming Christmas 2023. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So let's talk a little bit about where we left things in talking about the 2023 Star Wars movie. Every month I do an update on Star Wars news coming out in the month that we are just entering into. And this month I did it on December 2nd. The episode was recorded on December 1st. And in talking about movies, I talked about how, even though we didn't necessarily have an expectation of movie news coming, I compared the situation of having a 2023 date to where we are now with The Force Awakens and how the setup was for 2015 release date versus 3 years earlier in 2012 and what was going on at that time. And so, of course, the very next day after the episode came out is when Disney announced that they were going to have a 4-hour Investor Day presentation. Well, it was really only 3.5 hours, but I mean, 4 hours is what they had scheduled for it. Wow. And the Lucasfilm section in there was about 20 minutes long or so. Kathy Kennedy was the person delivering all the great news in that regard, and she saved the big banner announcement for last. Now, you've probably seen the reporting about this, but I wonder whether you've actually heard Kathleen Kennedy deliver the news. So here is Kathleen Kennedy from the Disney Investor Day conference delivering the big announcement.
And to close today, I couldn't be more excited that our next Star Wars feature film will be directed by Patty Jenkins. Patty, director of the Wonder Woman franchise, will bring her inspired vision to Rogue Squadron. This story will introduce a new generation of starfighter pilots as they earn their wings and risk their lives in a boundary-pushing, high-speed thrill ride. The legend of Rogue Squadron has been long beloved by Star Wars fans and will move us into a future era of the galaxy. Rogue Squadron will be released in theaters Christmas of 2023.
Now, Patty Jenkins also put out a video and talked about her own personal relationship to the story of fighter jets, of fighter pilots, and how she is finally able to combine two things that she loves very deeply. Although, as the video is happening, you don't necessarily know that she's talking about Star Wars as the other thing that she loves deeply. And so what a joy it is to watch that video. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I will link it at the blog post for this show's episode at sw7x7.com and in the show notes for podcast and YouTube also. And so we jump ahead a couple of days later because Patty Jenkins is in the midst of doing press for Wonder Woman 84, which is coming out on Christmas Eve and on HBO Max on Christmas Day, getting fabulous reviews already from critics, which is wonderful to hear. But she is going to be asked about Star Wars all the time because that's what happens, as we've talked about many times over the years on the show. And IGN asked her specifically about Rogue Squadron because there is a Rogue Squadron video game, and Rogue Squadron appears in Legend stories, of course. And so she said that they're doing something original with great influence from games and books. There's a lot of things being acknowledged and understood about the greatness of all those things, but yes, it's an original story and I'm so psyched to do it. That's what Patty Jenkins says about any connection to previous Rogue Squadron media that exists. And most recently, she talked with Collider about the story, and she was asked about who is writing it, if she's writing it, if somebody's writing it with her, and she said that there is a co-writer, and she says, I want him to have his own proper announcement, so I'm going to wait until that comes out. So, it's a guy, or at least, based on the pronouns, it seems that's the case. We'll see, obviously. And further along into the Collider story, she says about where they are in this whole process. She says, we're very far into the, and then stops and says, we're finishing the treatment basically, which is pretty big. So it ends up being like where you're fairly close to a well-along screenplay by the time I'm done with the treatment in my process. So yeah, we've been working on it for a while. It's going great. I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited about the story. As far as where this compares, now that we have the additional information to, say, for example, The Force Awakens in terms of timing. And the reason why we're talking about The Force Awakens is because that was the first movie. And I'm not saying that Patty Jenkins has a franchise here necessarily, or a series, if you will. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't, we don't know. But Force Awakens started a brand new movie, basically, from scratch, new development, new everything. That's basically what Patty Jenkins is going to be going through. And so that's why the comparative. So knowing that she has been working on this for a while, which means that she has been in consultation with Lucasfilm about this, the thing that we talked about earlier this month about how The Force Awakens had a conceptual team working in advance of having a screenplay, and they were working as early as December of 2012, 3 years before the movie came out. Well, that is certainly possible under the current circumstances. A creative team could already be at work doing sort of pre-production, if you will. And as I mentioned in the earlier December episode, J.J. Abrams came on in January of 2013, so we're already ahead of that curve, with Patty Jenkins already being announced as a director and already being on board for possibly multiple months prior to this, and also in the midst of a treatment which is a significant step toward a fully fledged screenplay, and that is also months ahead of where The Force Awakens was, with Michael Arndt coming on board in roughly February, March of 2013. So they're already ahead of the curve on that as well. Now, there's one bit of reporting that I thought was kind of interesting. I can't remember where I saw it, but I want to mention it, and I want to flag it in comparison to something that Kathleen Kennedy said in her presentation. Before I do that, though, a quick little promo for my own purposes, if you will. The YouTube channel for Star Wars 7x7 is approaching 500 subscribers, and it would be amazing to be able to reach that milestone by the end of the year. So if you are not currently a subscriber to the YouTube channel and are checking out the show via video, I hope you will consider smashing that subscribe button, as they like to say on other YouTube channels. And if you're catching the audio version of this, but you just didn't happen to know that I do this on video as well, and you are interested in what my facial expressions might be like while I'm doing this, or you want to see the Star Wars Barbie dolls that are in the background right now, check the show out at youtube.com/SW7x7. Funnily enough, SW7x7.com/YouTube will get you there as well. Thank you so much for considering it, and thank you so much for helping me get to 500 subscribers there. So I saw reporting talking about Rebel fighter pilots, and that struck me as a little bit odd, because yes, I know Rogue Squadron really is about the rebellion. That legend goes back to Rogue One, of course, and to Rogue Squadron as we saw them in The Empire Strikes Back. But Kathleen Kennedy specifically said that it will move us into a future era of the galaxy. And that's a very specific phrase. And so it makes me think that we are jumping ahead past the rise of Skywalker, which obviously is not rebellion, and who knows whether it's actually resistance. It could still be resistance, because they are still having to clean up after the First Order with everything that happened. Yes, they tried to shorthand it a bit by saying that the people are uprising in the galaxy and showing a bunch of First Order Star Destroyers blowing up and stuff. So it could possibly arrive in the aftermath of that, but it sounds like a future era of the galaxy means that they are jumping a generation ahead of that. And yes, I suppose you could open a door to this could eventually lead to seeing Rey and Poe and Finn on screen. In fact, wouldn't it be interesting to see Poe Dameron taking sort of the Wedge Antilles role that he performed in The Rise of Skywalker and being a mentor for all of these pilots in this future era of Star Wars storytelling. Obviously, those thoughts are miles down the road, but how wonderful it is to hear that 2023 December date for a Star Wars film is actually going to be filled, and it's going to be filled by Patty Jenkins. So there you go. That is the scoop as we have it right now on the upcoming Star Wars Rogue Squadron movie, and that's going to do it for this episode of the show as well. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.